US officials claim they have intelligence pointing to the small-scale use of chemical weapons by the regime in Syria. The data is said to be sketchy and difficult to verify. Washington has warned a chemical attack in Syria could spark a US intervention, and some lawmakers now say the red line has been crossed. But as RT's Marina Portner reports, the drumming up of war rhetoric is reminiscent of a previous invasion.
U.S. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel said that the White House has informed members of Congress that intelligence officials believe with some degree of varying confidence that Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's government has used chemical weapons against members of the opposition, specifically sarin gas. Hagel didn't provide any specific facts on when or where the alleged weapons were used, and it is not even clear what the phrase "with some degree of varying confidence" even means. Does that mean that one intelligence official is confident that this has taken place and one is not confident? Clearly that language is either convoluted or a bit confusing. Now, Secretary Hagel said that Assad's use of chemical weapons violates every convention of warfare. But what's interesting is that on Tuesday, Israel's intelligence officials claimed that the Syrian government had used lethal chemical weapons against rebels, and at that time, Secretary Hagel expressed his doubts about those findings. Now, the U.S. is currently pressing for the United Nations to conduct a comprehensive investigation into allegations of Damascus's use of chemical weapons. But the United Nations Secretary General has previously appointed a team of experts, but the Syrian government has been accused of blocking the team from doing its work. Now, U.S. President Barack Obama has previously said that the use of chemical weapons by the Syrian government would be a game changer in the U.S. position on intervening in the two-year-old civil war. In a letter sent to two U.S. senators, a White House legal official did write that the assessment of likely chemical weapons use in Syria will not automatically trigger action, including military intervention. But the official also referred to bad intelligence about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq that led to the U.S. invasion of that country. In that case, the intelligence was proved wrong. Everybody can remember just a decade ago when Colin Powell sat in the chambers of the United Nations Security Council shaking a vial to try to convince the international community to go along with America's invasion into Iraq. And clearly, his claims of Iraq having weapons of mass destruction were proven wrong. But nonetheless, U.S. senators like John McCain are already calling for action. McCain has said that if the U.S. now declines to intervene in Syria, it would send the wrong message to other adversaries in the region. According to some experts, what is proving positive or factual here is that the current accusations against the Syrian government is eerily similar to the accusations that were made against the Iraq government preceding America's 2003 invasion. So many experts believe here that all this talk can be leading the U.S. and its Western allies to take military action against Syria, possibly without all the correct facts in place.
The U.S. and its allies have backed the Syrian rebels throughout the conflict, which is now in its third year. But by standing strong, Damascus has forced the West to increase the pressure, according to independent journalist Robert Harness.
It's a lot of nonsense, and everybody in the diplomatic world knows it. But it is intended to create an atmosphere where America and its Western satellite allies can begin to be more aggressive in their assistance to the rebels or terrorists or whatever you want to call them in Syria. Because the reality at the moment is that the Syrian army is doing rather well and the rebels are doing rather badly, despite the thousands of tons of arms the West and their Gulf allies have imported into Syria. I think John Kerry said we must look at ways of putting pressure on Bashar al-Assad. And he was speaking, for once, nothing but the truth. About a month ago, that Britain and France tried to persuade the European Union to ease the arms embargo so that they could supply more weapons to the rebels. And that was actually slightly surprisingly defeated in the European Union. They weren't able to do that. So now, as they see their allies in Syria on the ground beginning to do quite badly, they're looking for ways to put pressure on Bashar al-Assad. I think the West is feeling its way. They don't know what to do. This has lasted 2 years. They've totally failed to overthrow Bashar al-Assad. And to a large extent, they failed to discredit him as well.